Hello and welcome back to Bil and my analysis of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. This is part 7 and we are now going up to the hotel once again, but all of the family, supposedly, and it's called Closing Day, this chapter. And I might just, everything's okay. The first shot after the new title card, called as a black and white Closing Day, is an emerging from a forest of pine-like trees. Seen from this angle, it very much resembles a maze which bleeds from the first drive to the overlook, or it's the idea of the maze of getting out of your sort of maybe comfort zone or whatever symbolism you could put into it, right? She's still creating a story from out of a mental Freudian maze. Sigmund Freud talked about mazes, right? So you can look that up. Wendy is navigating to and in a new place, her asylum, through a mental maze represented by the yellow VW, right? So she's sort of going through this system, going to this place that she's convinced Danny, one of her little ghosts, right, that it might be a good idea to go up there. This shot illustrates the meandering road Wendy is traveling in a harsh and hostile, uneven terrain. The car appears as out of the mountain tunnel. Very evocative, in my opinion. Okay, so I might also add a little comment on some of these shots from the movie that I find particularly arresting or interesting or challenging or just sheer beauty and so on. And if you care to look for these compositions, there are a lot of them. And maybe it's a bit about I'm sort of an amateur photographer. I'm not so much these days as I maybe used to some years ago, right? But I like the idea of street photography, which is sort of going out into the city or going out in the country or mostly city, right? And just finding interesting stuff and then take a quick snapshot of people and places and how things align in various interesting shapes and whatever have you, right? So I like this kind of, and I think that Kubrick has a very good eye for this kind of sort of this style, this sort of street photographer kind of style of composition. And street photography is mostly famous for a guy called Henri Cartier-Bresson, which I'm personally a huge fan of, right? But there are others who are also great. And I personally take a liking to his style of photography. Though this is not something he did, Kubrick, but there was like 20 hours of helicopter footage. So he could choose those that he found to be of particular greatness. So it's close, right? It's not filmed by Kubrick. He didn't compose it, but he selected it out of a huge amount of material, right? So this is why I have chosen to frame it and put it in a part 2 in order to it sort of elevates the artistic expression a bit to put it into a frame, in my opinion. It sort of gives it some, it feels more selected or whatever it is. I'm not sure how to phrase it, right? Okay, so you will see this in the rest of this analysis, except maybe not too much at the end because so much is happening, and I'm more concerned with sort of getting the analysis across, right? Okay, Wendy looks indifferent. She's yawning and oh my God, right? She's not particularly interested in going there, right? she mentions the feel of the air. And to the best of my understanding, Jung mentions Jung is sort of half crazy, right? But there was some stuff in his, his approach that I like. I like the idea of the persona and the conscious and the unconscious. It's sort of an easy overview of what is going on. It might be somewhat more complicated. There might be some leakages here and there in that, picture. But in overall generality, it works for me. It's simple approach to things, right? What you see on the surface or hear on the surface of people are not their true self. So, and the more problematic your interaction with other people is, how big is the difference between the persona and the conscious and subconscious, and the shadow side, where everything that they want to forget is shoved down, but will inevitably pop out at some point in some way or another, right? This is something that concerned Kubrick a lot, not only in this movie, but in other movies. In all his movies, basically, right? Fear and Desire, the first movie, Fear and Desire, right? So, apropos Danny's hunger, Wendy brings up the dinner party. As Jax has explained it to Danny, Wendy hushes, but she was the one who brought up the topic. So Danny has seen cannibalism on the television anyway. The early yawning by Wendy is one of the more bizarre choices of Kubrick that I don't have any particular explanation for, other than a reference to the fresh air and breathing it. But also maybe it's a passive-aggressive way of saying, come to think of it, that she doesn't want to go there, right? So as she's conjuring up this story, she sort of just wants to get this part of the story out of the way, right? And possibly Wendy has heard about this story about the Donner Party getting, snowed in and in old wagon times and so on, right? But the point is, I hear a lot. If you see people reviewing, you can see some on YouTube or whatever, right? They always get angry at Jack for sort of looking strange, snapping or whatever, right? But it's actually Wendy bringing up the topic. Danny just says he's hungry, and then she talks about the dinner party where they were eating. It is Wendy doing it, and then she plays holy afterwards. Oh my God, right? And it's this duality that is sort of also illustrated here in a way, right? I don't think I have more to say about that. When Jack drove to the interview, he went uphill on a slope, top right to lower left. It's sloped, yeah. From your angle, it is, oh my God, right? Opposite of what I'm doing. It sloped one way, and then, why am I doing this, right? One way up there and another way. They're driving downhill, and the other way they're driving uphill. Of course, you could say, yeah, but you don't get the whole of the road, and it might be, they're crossing a bridge and going to the other side, and therefore it slopes to the other side, and sometimes it goes up, but sometimes it goes down. Yeah, sure. But it could also be sort of an appeal to, there's something not quite right here, right? On the way to closing day, they go downhill on the opposite side on a slope left to lower right. Okay. A mountain peak and hotel tower creates a functional symmetry of a real-life setting. The fog clouds has bled through from the prior scene where there was sort of foggy thing, right? A classic ghostly atmosphere, you could say. The symmetry was not really there in the other establishing shot, flyover shot. So in this scene, it is more like Wendy has arrived for good, with her symmetrical split personality, right? So before it was just, flying sideways and looking down. Now it's sort of symmetry head on. It's even like the little trees are participating in this symmetry. The middle is the pyramid, and so on, pyramidal shape of the mountain and so on, right? And the pyramid is echoed in this ladder standing there. Is bled through and echoes, right? These cleaning and movers people seem very disorganized to me. It's like there's somebody standing there and somebody moves something there. It seemed like it feels like somebody who's just placed there to go from left to right or to look like they're doing something. It feels organized in a disorganized way. I'm not sure how to put it, right? So sorry about the ringing, this sort of ice cream trucks that drive around the countryside to sell you ice cream, right? And I won't recommend it if you're in Denmark. It doesn't taste very nice, right? Things that would be expected to be dragged outside and are carried in, and vice versa. The one scrubbing the floor has not cleared it for the boxes and the ladder, etc. The pattern on Danny's belt has bled through to the hotel. So what I'm saying is, why is he washing the floor, but there's still shit standing around? Before you start washing the floor, you would move ladders, right? It's just disorganized. So if Wendy is creating this story, to her it's natural because, you know, these kinds of things she has seen at some times, but she doesn't understand the real mechanics of these things, right? More importantly, the pattern on Danny's belt has bled through to the hotel, or maybe the other way around, right? Because we might have seen this pattern, which I actually think as Jack walks to Ullman's office first, you see this pattern, and that has bled through to Danny, but I only noticed it here at this point, but it might actually be the other way around and done earlier, right? Okay. The orange, red, and green object the guy is rolling in looks very strange, as he rolls it in the opposite direction of the sideways dolly shot. It will fall into the symmetry created by the columns that line up and the lamps hanging in the ceiling on either side. So the camera moves this way from my point of view, right? But the guy rolling it moves the other way. So it's sort of this sort of crossing effect, right? But as the column and the two lamps are part of the symmetry here, right? The wagon or that thing he's pushing is right behind the column, right? This sort of maybe a little speculative, but let me take it anyway, right? This seemed to indicate a triple of 2 + 1 = 3 in the sense of possibly two eyes, the two lamps, and a mouth, right? A reference to the original yellow film poster, and maybe the idea of the wolf rolled into one. So what you're seeing with that color, these colors on this carry thing, is that it starts to look like an open mouth, right? You see the teeth and the sort of what do you call the red flesh above the teeth? I'm not sure what it's called, right? You see, it's like, and that is hidden behind the column. So there's sort of the anger of the wolf and things going into symmetry and the child's face. There's something going on here, right? There's something going on. The object resembles a growling wolf's mouth with bloody teeth, but hidden behind a column during this transition, as Wendy is still trying to hide the wolf man, so to say, right? So you might interpret this in various ways, but I think there's something here, right? when Bill Watson and Stuart Ullman approaches and they fall into the next symmetry down the corridor there, right? And there's obviously also a kind of pyramid shape with the patterns and so on that creates this. It's because of the what's it called? The tilting lines. The lines tilts as the camera is played, the way it's placed, so to create this triangular shape, right? Lamps in the ceiling. When Bill approaches, they fall into the symmetry of the columns and the lamps in the ceiling. A mover guy passes in front of them, again in the opposite direction of the dolly shot, right? The dolly goes this way and the other one goes that way, right? It's sort of sideways dolly shot, which he's actually famous for, Kubrick, right? Very few people uses sideways dolly shots. The cafe table he carries in this particular way with its 4 legs sticking out horizontally seems almost like an aggressive sort of spearing gesture, sort of pushing against something, right? And even pushing against these two people, Ullman and Bill, right? Which is mommy and daddy. There is a roller table resembling a 1x4 composition up there against one of the pillars. And then there's a package on top, another box, that has been taped together with black tape. This pattern resembles a 2x4 composition or 1x4 twice, right? So I'm sort of just seeing these patterns, they sort of repeats itself, right? It just keep repeating these patterns. So, as the two men nears the entrance where they came in, supposedly, and near where Jack is sitting just to the right, that will be revealed in a moment, right? As the two men near the entrance, 2 girls enter the lobby carrying luggage, also in the opposite direction to the sideways dolly shot. Again, this is the 3rd time something goes this way compared to the dolly shot, right? And they greet the men with, "Goodbye, Mr. Ullman," right? Strange that they say goodbye if they enter the building, as if they know the whereabouts of Ullman and this last day, and that they're not going to meet again during the day. Why would they know anything about that? Unless, of course, you are Wendy and you know the story already, right? One girl's sweater resembles very much Danish 42 sweater. It could be a bleed through to this scene, right? As he passes in front of the Torrance family's luggage and Danny's red and blue tricycle in the background, right? As the net row of columns the net row, I'm unsure why I wrote this. As the net row of columns and lamps settle into symmetry again. I think it's the next row of columns. Sorry. The next row of columns. The next column goes into the middle of the picture, right? And again we have 2 lamps, one on either side of the column. And then these Bill and Ullman sort of hide behind this thing. And the girls behind them. The girls are sort of now behind them, further behind the pillar, right? It's sort of, there's something going on behind the pillar that she's not really aware. There's something, either she tries to hide it or she tries to figure out what it is. Sort of a symbolism, and things are being hidden. And also behind something red, which is sort of the color for trauma, right? I believe. Ullman passes behind the nearest column in exactly the same fashion as the roller with the wolf mouth did earlier, which is also sort of battling with the ladder behind it. This says that Wendy considers Ullman a wolf, a predator as in Freud's uncanny wolfman. Since Bill is participating and even artistically speaking, sort of pushing Ullman into place, sort of, right? So it's almost like they work together, Bill and Ullman, in a way, in a symbolic fashion here, right? This might be a bit over-interpreted, but I can't help thinking there's something about first this wagon behind the pillar in symmetry, and then these two people, important people, behind the pillar in symmetry. I mean, call me crazy, right? But there's got to be something about it. Bill is an accomplished participator, even maybe the responsible for the wolf, so to say, right? Wendy's parents, Bill and Susie, allowed predators to be near her and abuse her. That's my theory, right? Okay. As Ullman starts talking to Jack, a guy clad in Danny-looking colors has entered the lobby. He passes across the maze, and another one that goes against the current here, right? Passes across the maze model further away in the background. He has another four-legged chair, legs pointing horizontally, once again in a sort of aggressive, fast-moving fashion towards Bill and Ullman. So it's like Wendy is angry at these two persons and who they represent, sort of, in a way, right? If you get my drift. So Bill Watson is a male, and that male is her father. But because Ullman is a male, we have to see all these red-headed women to sort of connect the dots that, okay, Ullman is a representation of Wendy's mother. But because of the structure of the story, the best Kubrick can do is sort of bring Susie into the mix and let her go and find Danny later and so on, in order to connect these dots with the parents this way, right? It's sort of somewhat complicated approach, but I think this is why we have Susie in the picture in the first place, right? Hard to believe that all that luggage, including a tricycle and 3 persons, were all transported in that VW Beetle, right? And it's not a Beetle, this is not a Beetle, is a person in the Beatles. It should be 2 E's, right? It's a misspelling, right? Sometimes I don't know if it's just, you know, I'm not thinking while I'm writing always, right? So I'm a kind of distraught type of person. The sandwiches has now bled over from the Boulder kitchen, you could say, right? And now they're eating sandwiches again. Now, why would they be eating sandwiches of all kinds of food? Maybe because it's easily available and quick to make in the kitchen that is closing down, but maybe also because that's basically the only kind of food that Wendy can make, right? Or pour some, you know, fruit cocktail into a bowl, or, you know, fry some helpless eggs, right? that's just about as far as it goes for her kitchen skills, right? Okay, Bill Watson oddly arranges himself behind Jack. He stands like he's sort of ruminating or behind him. That's really, you know, you would go around and look, you wouldn't stand behind people. But again, if you remember in the prior part with that check-in girl, right? Redhead standing behind Ullman, sort of signal, and there's a connection there, right? And in this way, Bill Watson says there's a connection between him and Jack, right? Otherwise, it's you know, very impolite to just stand behind the person you're greeting, welcome in your hotel and so on. I mean, it would be to me. I wouldn't do that, right? It is strange, I want to see, behind Jack, which is a strange way to greet a new employee. Is it an artistic way of saying that Jack is at least based on the person who Bill is? They have the same origin. It is strange that the Torrances have been eating and playing until Ullman and Bill could find time to welcome them. Seems like a bad coordination of sort of when do we arrive and when are you available and, you know, whatever, right? Though it could be explained by the Torrances having left home in too good time and to secure they would not arrive late. You know, sometimes if you're going to a job interview or some important event and you want to make sure you don't arrive late, right? You go extra early, but then there's no trouble, and then you arrive half an hour too early. And, it's not out of the question here, right? In a situation like this, it seems a bit odd to me that Wendy and Danny are running around in a place they don't know yet. A place that Jack has to take care of, where they haven't met the manager yet. Jack would keep everyone in the lobby, hand Danny something to read, and have called Ullman. Instead, they ordered food and messed up the lobby on closing day and gone playing in a room they, strictly speaking, don't have a right to be in yet. Right? It's just an odd, childish understanding of things. It's again this underlying weirdness, right? Only if Wendy is used to walk around in this place as she sees fit would she do this. The Overlook is not a hotel, but a mixture of her imagination and her asylum. Bill Watson is standing behind Jack to indicate that Jack is partly made of the person Bill represents. In Wendy's memory, it is Bill sitting in the chair, while another person would be sitting in the other chair. Like they are sitting watching television. The other chair would probably be Susie's, but she's busy right now, preparing to go out to look for Danny outside. What these two chairs are facing, as seen in the very first hotel shot, is basically a big child's face, like the yellow film poster, with eyes in upper corners and a mouth, and the two middle doors, the red sofa on the other side. This is Wendy looking at her parents, accusing them. They are looking at her, she's looking at them, right? The man sitting in the first shot mirrors how Jack will sit in the later shot. I'm not sure, it's enough to say that there's some resemblance going on here. Let's just stick to that, right? Okay. The lunch is sandwich and cola, the Wendy type of junk meal, right? Jack is reading a pornographic magazine called Playgirl. This is not the kind of literature you would choose to read in front of your new employer. Jack throws it on the chair before he leaves, so he just casually, right? As if he found it there when he arrived. Seems highly unlikely to me that a pornographic magazine for women, actually, and gay men, I suppose, should be lying around in the lobby of a hotel. This is supposedly a place for all the best people, as Ullman says a bit later, right? The Playgirl magazine points to some sexual fantasy between Wendy and the people in the scene. Maybe Jack is partly a composite of her sexual fantasy. The chairs here have bled through from the bloody elevator. These are the same style of armchairs that are in the elevator hall with the blood, right? Seen in the breakdowns. But there's all, I know that some people have figured out which issue of Playgirl this is, and there's actually some article about incest. So this is not to be overlooked, in my opinion, but I don't mention it because it might be something that Kubrick put in to find in the VHS version of the movie when that came out, not to be understood when you're sitting in the theater, because you wouldn't even, even notice. I never noticed it was this kind of magazine, and I didn't really care either, right? But if you dig that deep into the sources and the material in the movie, you can do that while you are watching the VHS and then analyzing and going trying to figure out and so on. And then there's this, so you're digging deeper into finding. So it is obviously placed there because it is sort of completely out of left field type of literature, so to say, right? So Kubrick is obviously aware of this, right? And that, I think, is planted there for you to get to the idea of some kind of abuse, right? Though Ullman just seemed to look in the direction of the Torrens luggage, he inquires about it. Jack points at it exactly as 3 persons pass in front of it, a tall young man and 2 young women. It is a strange choice to direct people to walk in front of that which Jack points at, so it has to mean something. I suppose it's a bleed through of the 2 girls greeting Ullman just before. I think it's sort of a kind of a jealousy theme, a small jealousy theme, that Wendy, creating the story, has some fear that her Prince Charming Jack there, right, is looking at other girls. I mean, it's a well-known phenomenon then, that if you have a partner, you don't want them to start looking at other people in sort of a semi-sexual manner. It's like you're feeling left out, or you're not good enough, or something like that. That kind of fear, I think, is built into these kinds of scenes, right? So there's a few moments with girls in the start of this particular chapter. Yet again, a mover comes in with furniture in front of himself, like this with a table or something, right? Now he's sort of stabbing Bill Watson with this table. This time it looks like 2 chairs. Okay, it's a 2x4 legs, right? Bill Watson seems to want to cover over the Wendy Mays model further back. He stands in almost as if he covers up that maze down there. But, you know, I might be reaching a bit here, right? As they prepare to do the walkthrough, Jack reminds Ullman that he needs to collect his family, almost as if Ullman has forgotten he has one. Ullman had prepared to pass behind the nearest column, but when he heard of the collecting his family, he turns and moves in front of it instead. Ullman is being revealed for his true wolf nature by having to pass on the visible side of the column. It's sort of the connecting the wolf and the predator and mummy and the window. Sort of it reaches back to that sort of wolf idea and the uncanny, the wolf man, right? It's like he turns to walk, and then Jack reminds him, oh my, I got to, okay. And then instead of keep going, he sort of turns around and walk around the other way around the column. That's a kind of a strange choice, but it's almost like Wendy is trying to keep it revealed, rather than him going back behind the column again. He is being forced to being exposed by going on this side of the column. There could be some symbolism like that, right? Another 2x4 composition in the frame of the door. Yes, the open door here is 2x4, right? The reason why Kubrick showed us the first scene without Wendy is to tell us that she is shining. When she joins the party, all the lamps are suddenly lit. They were all turned off in the lobby. Shining is not some ESP which she attempts to convince us later with Halloran. Instead, the shining is a symbol of her mental problems and imagination. We are still left to wonder if Danny turns lights on or not. Is it like here in the lobby, there is no lights on. It's just, everything is natural light. But up here, it's shining everywhere. It's like blazing lights, right? Maybe you wouldn't want to do that on the last day if you're closing down. Maybe, I mean, it's just sort of the uncanniness or the sort of weirdness of it, right? Okay, they come out of one of the blood elevators. It's an elevator similar to the one seen in the first breakdown, right? And we hadn't seen that elevator in any scenario, any scene yet. We hadn't seen that elevator yet before we come and see this elevator. Then you can, because it's sort of almost out of the picture, you might even not recognize that it's the same elevator we're dealing with, right? And they're coming out of the same side of the elevator as the blood comes out of the elevator during the breakdown, right? We only see the left eye, just as we only saw the left eye on the bear pillow. Danny rested his hand on, bleeding through. Ullman falls into symmetry with two sconce lights either side of the stairwell as two eyes, and possibly Ullman's red trousers as the mouth area, implying sexual trauma possibly, and with Wendy exactly under the right eye, as opposed to it being closed, not visible on the elevator. So it's like, again, this is play with symbolism and so on, right? And of course there's a hell of a lot of arrows everywhere here and possible pyramids, and I don't need to mention that anymore, right? Here during the breakdown, the elevator opens the right door if the left door seen from our point of view, right? The elevator opens the left door opens the right door from left towards right. It opens actually the left door. I wrote it incorrectly. It opens the left door going from left to right in the breakdown, right? In the elevator in the right. I have mixed something up here. What I'm trying to say is that when we look at the breakdown, let me just explain it as I see it, right? When you see the breakdown elevator, the door moves this way, seen from my point of view, right? To reveal the blood. But when we go out of the elevator, they come out of the elevator in this shot down there, it goes the other way. It goes from, in the breakdown, it goes as if you were inside the elevator, you would move it sort of from right to left, right? But here it's open left to right. So that's just a discrepancy between the two pictures, right? It might not be a biggie, but I'm mentioning for completion, right? For completeness, it seems there is some mirroring going on, as if a bleeding from the subconscious, at least sometimes, can be identified by a mirroring. I'm not quite sure what I meant when I wrote that, but it's maybe the mirroring of the movements of these two doors, right? The elevator itself a mirror from the sub or even subconscious, but as it is symmetrical, its mirror form can only be identified by its style of opening. This here is the bleeding in mirror form. Breakdown 1 showed the blood flowing from the first floor. Yeah. Mirror form. It's also on the first floor, this supposedly, right? So the first floor is the marker on the eyes of the blood elevator, and the elevator here is also on the first floor. We know it's the first floor, right? Or we believe it's the first floor. It's on top of the lobby, so to say. Okay. Big wolf ears on the carpet. There are predators nearby. The four of them walk nicely and childish like ducks in a row, right? The ducks in a row are like the little plastic duck in the bathroom, right? It could be ducks in a row this way. Which refers to the Volkswagen Beetle and the Winnie the Pooh yellow thing, right? As they walk this way and the camera tracks them sideways like this, they will constantly make like little triangles and pyramids or wolf ears with their legs, right? This could also be a homage to Henri Cartier-Bresson's decisive moment, which is sort of famous photograph idea, right? And Wendy darling, in Flying Peter Pan, right? The 4 little children here, one after the other, right? Or even, you know, the walking of the dwarfs in Snow White. You know, some people have associated this with the Beatles' Abbey Road cover. I can see the idea, but it's hard for me to bring the Beatles into this, Abbey Road, right? I don't think this is what he's going for, honestly. The young people with the luggage beginning to move. They begin to move as they come out of the elevator. Next to the elevator are placed in the picture the same place where the Torrance's luggage was placed in the lobby before the cross dissolved. It's sort of a bleed through from that scene. Even if we heard Jack say he wanted to collect his family, only Wendy has been located. What has she been doing? Has she left a 5-year-old boy to his own devices in a completely new place? Did she and Danny not play together? This seems highly problematic, and maybe a hint that as a child, Wendy was sometimes feeling left alone in strange places, right? So it's like, who cares where Danny is, right? He's just goofing around somewhere in this big place. So it's like, it says a lot about the one having this imagined story, right? This sideways dolly shot, as we keep moving into the Colorado Lounge, right, indicate a transition. I consider the many arrangements of these kinds of black and white photos as representations of Wendy's memories, possibly feeling like she was back in childhood, right? We are going from a soft golden light from just outside the elevator into a more reflecting and shining area, color coding to distinguish transition, sort of a blue, light blue. We're going from golden yellow to light blue, right? And this is also one of the reasons why these color schemes in the movie and the lighting, strength of the lighting and the reflections are so fucking important. Are you listening, Warner Brothers and Netflix, right? Why have you destroyed this masterpiece? Come on, man. We are golden from soft golden area to a cold bluish, more reflective and shining area, color coding to distinguish transitions between consciousness levels, possibly, right? A lamp over near the luggage has its white lampshade tilted. Lamp similar to the one in Boulder. There's this white lamp, sort of big, this, what you call that screen on the lamp, right? Sort of tilted in Boulder, and there's also somewhat tilted lamp over there near the luggage, right? Okay. There's an extremely strong shine reflection in the polished floor, right? It's massive, to be honest. The American flag has bled through from the Ullman office. It hangs over here. It's also folded sort of the same way, right? Jack's throne is already prepared. So Wendy has already thought this out. She's already prepared some part of it, right? It's already sort of set up what is going to happen here, right? As the big table falls into symmetry, and I've shown you this before, right? Its long sides create a pyramid stop with Wendy's head placed as its top. Again, Wendy falls into place with a near complete symmetry. She is the one who rules this game. She is in the symmetry. She is in the middle. The camera follows her, right? Or she is filming herself, quote, in the scenario, right? She's revealing that she is the main character in this story. Extreme shine basically from everywhere. I would not be surprised if there are 21 lights in the center lamp in the ceiling. There are 3 windows, each with 3 frames, plus 4 sconces equals 7. So 3 windows, 4 lights, 7, right? The small shine reflecting table similar to the large long table, puts Wendy on top of this smaller pyramid. Stop. She is basically walking on top of it to confirm the pyramid connection she just created a moment earlier. Yeah, whatever. Possible pyramids everywhere, right? All the carpet is also, right? It's everywhere. Almost everywhere, right? And there are some interesting pyramid shapes I'm going to point out later where you might say, holy crap, man, why didn't I see that, right? The bookcases all have 3 shelves arrangements. This is split through from the bold apartment. Above this kitchen table, these 3 massive shelves with books, which is completely out of place in my opinion. Why would you fucking have 3 shelves filled with books this way above this? It's not impossible. It's just sort of kind of out of place, right? And these little, what do you call these sort of French bookcases? There are sort of 3 shelves inside these boxes, right? Or pieces of furniture, book furniture. In the middle window above Wendy, there is another pyramid. There's a pyramid in the colored mosaic in the window, right? With stringed column pattern. All 3 windows has pattern arranged in 3 by 3. The ones to the side with the cross and diagonals are more symmetry. They are sort of symmetric in these arrows and whatever is going on, right? The windows just below the patterns all have 2 plus 3 times 7 equals 42 squares. I think it should be 2 times 3 times 7, right? You can count it. There's 7 this way and 6 this way. The windows below have 21, right? There's 6 columns of 7 or 7 columns of 6. 7 columns of 6, which is 42, right? And then there is, it's 2 times 3, right? Or 3 plus 3, whatever, this numerology game, right? There's 42 squares inside the middle part of the windows. In the lower part of the window, there's 21, which is half of 22 squares, right? And then there's 3 by 3, there's 3 columns this way and 3 this way, and so it's all this numerology shit, right? The way they walk in a line makes sure that we see their legs creating small triangles. I've told you this before, right? Adding to both a theme of the number 3, a pyramid theme, and the wolf's ear theme. All right, next one. The way the camera is placed ensures that the round lamp in the ceiling becomes oval. This creates an interesting double duality, so to say. If you draw a vertical oval, and bottom, but its lights are instead rather a copy. The lights stick in the same direction but follow the mirror bottom of the oval. I have to admit, I'm not sure what the hell I'm saying. Yeah. So if you draw a vertical line, vertical oval, the oval itself symmetric, mirror the top and bottom. Yeah, maybe it's that the way the lights and the oval, if you take the upper part and the lower part, they're sort of a kind of a reflection of each other in a way. So whatever, right? Maybe I'm going a little too far there, right? Never mind. Interesting choice to have a long-haired redhead walking past the walkthrough party. And once again in the opposite direction of the side-tracking camera. Additionally, Ullman and Jack, perhaps, looks in the direction of this woman as she reaches the middle of the frame. Both Ullman, Susie, and the doctor have red hair. There is a pattern here. They are derived from the same person in Wendy's memory, as I've said a few times now, right? Wendy stays at the center of the sideways moving camera. Now there are 4 windows and 3 sconce lights, which is 7. Another white lamp is tilting. There's a tilting white lamp over here, right? In front of Ullman. Driftwood figure on the table is a strange decision, but I'll get back to that in a second, right? There is a lonely ashtray on a table lower left. There have already been spotted at least 2 large ashtrays and 4 table ones on the small tables in the back. So there are still these ashtrays hanging around, though they have cleaned out basically the whole place, or very deep into it, supposedly. It's the last day. But there's still several ashtrays placed. This is sort of curious, but it goes very well along with all the smoking idea I've been talking about, right? Okay, so here's a massive pyramid, right? The next big symmetry. Wendy is hidden by the strange driftwood sculpture, meaning couch has 2x4 arrangement. Yeah, the couch there has 2x4, right? It's like there's 2 pillows for the back, and 4 pillows for the back and 4 pillows for sitting on, right? So this is 2x4, right? Arrow-filled carpet creates the outline of a pyramid. Reason for the driftwood ugly. Yes, this is, if you see this driftwood, it matches the lines of the carpet that goes into a pyramid with Wendy's head at the apex once again. This is why this driftwood is there. Otherwise, it's some fucking ugly, thing standing there on a fucking table. Why would you do that? It looks ridiculous, right? But it fits with the pattern of this pyramid that is created here with the bottom, the lower, and going all the way to the center of the picture, right? This is why we need the full frame. We need to enjoy all of it in order to enjoy this movie. Warner Brothers and Netflix and whoever runs this shit show, right? In the next symmetry, a piano appears. This is strangely placed out of any symmetric possibilities, like the other furniture. The meaning, I have wondered about this piano there. If there's some meaning to it, and it's closest to the stairway, which is going to be an interesting spot later, right? There's probably a piano in the gold room, up on the bandstand or whatever it's called, right? Strong reflection here. There could be some shining moment going on. Maybe it's a part of her memory. I don't know. I can't tell you, right? But there's these big lights up there. There's also like 2 eyes, right? Okay. A mover, as they call them. What do you call these people, right? Movers? Carries a rolled up carpet down the stairs. This is exactly the place where Jack later will roll down from further up the stairs when Wendy hits him in the head with a baseball bat. And she will carry him off to lock him in the pantry. Carrying rolled up carpets like that is sort of a notch at old gangster movies, right? Where they carry up dead victims this way. So it feels a bit like carrying dead persons away. And like Wendy will carry a half-dead person dragging. There's something about it, right? And also slight pyramid shape here, right? That might indicate there's some connection between people getting killed and the Illuminati and whatever, right? What have you. Okay. A guy is hoovering this sofa. Extending from his head are 7 photos, though 9 in total. On staircase behind him, arranged as the stairs. A special Hoover extension lies on the sofa, which very much resembles a cricket bat or even a baseball bat. And there's another lonely ashtray down there, right? So another symmetric transition view. we now move the other way from the cold hard light into the warmer, not warmer, but warmer soft light, right? It's interestingly another similar design chair turned to the opposite direction sort of makes a bookending pair on the outer sides of these transitions. There's a picture memory transition. You're sort of going through memories now, right? Now we're going sort of maybe back to the same level as when we came out through the elevator. We're going in the golden light and into the blue light and then into the golden light again now, right? Back up to the golden light, you could say, right? And either of these sides, there are these chairs and up against the table, right? For a closing day, they do burn a lot of lights in this hotel, apparently just to show Wendy around, right? It's all about showing Wendy this place. Jack is not interesting. Yes, I suppose that Jack was, he had a guided tour earlier when he, on the interview date, so to say, right? But this is very much like Wendy is being showing around this interesting great palace that she's in awe of how great it is, right? It's all about Wendy now all of a sudden, right? It seems that Jack is being moved into the center. He's all of a sudden, now he is placed in the center here. Sort of interesting because now they are not walking ducks in a row, now they are coming towards the camera, right? So they sort of have to spread out, I suppose, right? And that is one massive fireplace, and it's under a staircase. This is odd, and maybe even a dangerous. I don't think this is a valid placement of a fireplace. And this is also might be a hint at the stairway goes up, and if there was a fireplace there and there's another fireplace up there, there couldn't be fireplace on top of a fireplace, so to say. So there's a continuity problem here, right? The composition is almost diagonal, white and brown areas. Yeah, I think it's about the roof of the ceiling here, right? Goes, whatever. Now, the Danny scene here starts immediately with a slow zoom and the sound, zzz. Danny is throwing darts with red flyers on. The poster arrangement behind him follows the triptych scene. When we first get in, there's sort of a middle and then two posters on the side, right? One on either side. There are 4x1 yellow balls hanging from the pool tables. I don't know what this is supposed to mean, but they're hanging these yellow balls, right? Danny shakes his hand as if he prepares to throw in a similar way that Wendy shook her hand when she lit a cigarette, right? She did this when she fired up a cigarette. She moved. This is something that smokers do in order to make sure that the whole front of the cigarette is lit, not just one side of it. So they do it like this to make sure it's fully lit, right? Some people have pointed out that she's nervous. That's not the point. If you have been a smoker like I have been many years ago, it's what you do when you light a smoke, right? But Danny does this, right? So I think he was told to do this by Kubrick in order to echo that movement by Wendy earlier. A lot of light blue posters may be for both the dresses of the soon-to-appear twins. And it's all I think I mentioned it in a later slide here, but there is a lot of skiing going on in these posters, right? And why is that the case? Because there's no skiing here, we're told, right? Okay, I think I'll stop it here and we'll get to the next sort of breakdown with the twins. And please share, like, and subscribe. Let me have your comment below. And consider donation, links also below, or click on my bio, and then you can send me a donation if you so please. And otherwise, see you in the next part.